All right, I see that some are still coming in, but we're going to go ahead and start with introductions. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Starting a Farm or Home-Based Food Business. I'm Lindsay Farnsworth, Program Manager of the UW-Madison Division of Extension Community Food Systems Program, and I'm pleased to be a co-host for today's workshop. We have two great speakers with today. Dr. Barb Ingham is a professor in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences at UW-Madison and a food safety extension specialist. He teaches extensively on methods to safely preserve food at home and provides training in safe food processing and canning. For many years, Dr. Barb Ingham has been the director of the Master Food Preserver Program, and her research interests range from new methods to safely can garden produce to identifying methods to validate critical limits in the processing of meats. Our next speaker is Angela Moragne, founder and COO of That Salsa Lady, whose mission is to engage, empower, educate, and connect families in a manner which creates healthier, happier, and more productive neighborhoods through food. That Salsa Lady concentrates on impact versus profitability and fulfills their mission by building alliances which aid in developing, introducing, growing, and delivering fresh, healthy, affordable options to urban neighborhoods and those living in food deserts. I just wanted to touch on a few housekeeping items before we get started. First is, please, when you're not speaking, be sure to keep your speaker on mute. We will have Barb kick off the workshop, and then we'll move directly into Angela's presentation. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box at any time, or save your questions to ask during the general Q&A session after both presentations. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom, you should be able to put your cursor over the middle of the screen, and you'll see at the bottom chat. If you click on the chat icon, you'll be able to insert text to the right of the image or speaker image on the screen. And then lastly, I just wanted to make a quick plug for completing our evaluation of the program today. We'll put the link up a couple different times and then follow up with it after the presentation. But completing our evaluation makes it possible for us to continue to offer programming that's free of cost and available as a recording and handout after the fact. So please continue to make this possible by providing feedback via that evaluation. And with that, I'll hand it off to our first speaker, Dr. Barb Ingham. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm glad to be the first speaker and the first of our series of programs, and we hope that you'll be willing to or interested in joining us as we go through this series during the month of June this summer. So what we're going to cover in some very broad a very broad way today. We're going to start our presentation on just some general information about license exemption. So things that you can prepare either in your home kitchen or that you can from your farmstead, and sell those to the general public without a license. And there are quite a number of those in Wisconsin, and we're just going to hit the highlights, and we'll give you some ideas for next steps if what we share today it doesn't look like it quite fits with you, or you're thinking a little bit maybe longer term. We'll also share some ideas about that. What we won't be able to cover in any great detail today are some of the nuts and bolts of marketing your products, insurance, and business plan development. We do have some ideas to share on that as well. And then we have an excellent Angela Moragne is here, That Salsa Lady, and she's actually going to share a lot of information of her own journey in this space. So that will kind of give you an idea maybe of where you might go with that. So Nick, if you'll give me the next slide, please. Great. So wanted to start off by just reiterating how really important agriculture is to Wisconsin's economy. The value-added activities specifically contribute about somewhere over 82 billion to sales in the states. And there are quite a number of opportunities for farm or home-based businesses to get established in the state of Wisconsin, and maybe to go from there and branch out even further. So we're going to touch on some of those maybe beginning activities that you might consider either in your home or on your farm. All right, our next slide. Before we talk about food safety, which is really the focus of much of what we're going to talk about this week and next week, it is important. And just a reminder of why. So food that is manufactured for sale, whether it's from your home kitchen or perhaps from a commercial facility, it needs to be wholesome and safe for the general public. This is because we realize that an estimated 1 in 6 individuals in the United States get sick each year from contaminated food. Those illnesses are almost entirely preventable. And especially this last year with the coronavirus epidemic that we had and the drain on our healthcare system, if we can keep those individuals out of the hospital or out of a medical situation by making sure that as food processors, we do exactly what we need to do, then that's a really good thing. So of those 1 in 6 individuals in the United States that get sick each year from a contaminated food, roughly 128,000 of those are hospitalized. So these may be individuals either that are more at risk or have a more severe case of foodborne illness, and then 3,000 do die as a result. Again, largely preventable, and that's what we want to do certainly is to prevent those. Now, as an individual, I can, and a food safety person, I can clearly articulate the 3 times in my adult life when I know I have had a foodborne illness. So someone is taking up a great share of my illnesses. Let's say in the last 40 years, I've only been sick 3 times. So someone is sick a lot more often than I am. Again, largely preventable. All right, so let's dive in on the next slide and we'll start looking at some of those activities from our farm that we can, activities that do not require a license. We're able to sell things directly to the public. Fresh produce is probably has some of the broadest exemptions, or just we could think about it also as lack of restrictions from going from the farm to the market. So as long as we take fresh produce, so these may be carrots that you're harvesting, lettuce that you're harvesting, apples from your orchard, any of this that's still what we refer to as intact. You're able to take the roots off of things like lettuce. If you're harvesting head lettuce, you're able to take the soil off of carrots that you might bring out of the ground, or potatoes. But as long as it's not peeled, it's not sliced, this is referred to as raw, intact fruits and vegetables. These can go directly from farm to market, to grocery store, to restaurants, what have you. I do want to alert you that there is an expansive food safety support program coordinated by our Department of Agriculture and with extension support, and you can find their helpful information at the website safeproduce@wi.gov. So that's a great place to look for some on-farm readiness information, for information about selling fresh produce to individuals from your farm. So lots that you can do with fresh produce, and that really benefits Wisconsin, where we have a large fresh produce industry. Honey is another activity from your farm, another business that individuals are engaged in. If you have your own honey from your own bees, where you have the hives on your farm, and as long as we aren't adding other ingredients, which might be flavoring ingredients, and we're not whipping that honey, and it's graded, you can sell it from your farm, you could sell it door to door, you can sell it at farmers markets, you can even sell it to grocery stores. All of these activities without a license. A great way to find additional information is from our Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. There's a website. If you had access to the slides, it would be directly linked, but a great website to search for is DATCAP, Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, Selling Honey in Wisconsin. Excellent information there. Maple syrup is another industry. Wisconsin is 4th in the nation in the harvesting of sap and the manufacture of maple syrup. So farm-produced syrup can be sold from the farm. It can be sold door to door, and also can be sold at farmers markets. I know in my family, that's one of the things we look forward to very much so this time of year, early in the season, when they're maple syrup producers at farmers markets here in the Madison area. If you sell at a farmer's market, you can certainly do that without a license. You need to make sure that you're selling only other exempt products. So these may be home bakery items, maybe items produced under the pickle bill, maybe raw agricultural products. So all of these can be sold at a farmer's market when you're selling. And again, our Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection has some really helpful information on selling maple syrup in Wisconsin. Okay, next one, Nick. All right, other information. If we look at the poultry industry, and increasingly backyard flocks are prevalent around the state of Wisconsin. Eggs can be sold directly from the farm. You can have no more than 150 laying hens, and you do have to keep the eggs cold. If you're going to take those, so perhaps in this case, maybe people will be stopping by the farm gate and they'll be picking up eggs, perhaps on their way to work or on their way home from work or just driving by your farm. So that none of that activity requires a license. If, however, you would like to take the eggs to a farmer's market, you might choose to go door to door. Or you might sell to retail establishments, which would be like grocery stores or restaurants. This is all fine. I know for a number of years, our family benefited from home delivery of eggs. We got 6 dozen eggs every week. There were 3 of us. We ate a lot of eggs, but it was great to see that farmer every week. And we had the used cartons for him and took those eggs on. It was really a wonderful opportunity. So for more information, the license fee is, I will say, minimal. I believe it's around $30 or $40 a year for these activities. Again, our Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection has information on egg sales and licensing. So that's an easy way to search out that information. Poultry sales. So you can have spent layers, you can have chickens that you raise simply for the meat. You can have up to 1,000 farmed raised birds per year. Those 1,000 birds are slaughtered on the farm, and then they can also be sold on the farm. All of this without a license. So you're able to do this under an exemption. You do need to keep the birds, once they're slaughtered and processed, either refrigerated or frozen. Either is fine. When you take them off the farm, which again you can do, and you're going to either grocery stores, which would be retail environments, going door to door, perhaps if you're doing both chicken and eggs, or if you're going to farmers markets, there is a license that would be required for those kind of sales. It's actually quite easy to get that license. And again, Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection has a handout. You just have to search direct marketing of meat and poultry. So the important thing here, both in the egg sales and in this particular case with poultry, is you're making that sale directly to the end consumer. So this might be a homeowner at their home, or it may be to a whole group of homeowners at a farmer's markets. So these are retail sales. Again, lots of opportunities to get started with that. Let's look next at meat. Again, a very primary industry in the state of Wisconsin. So in Wisconsin, when we move into meat, which may be, it's primarily beef if we think of the meat industry, but it doesn't have to just be beef animals. It could certainly be goats. It could be lamb or sheep. depending on how you refer to those. So you may sell live animals from your farm. Someone can come to your farm and pick up an animal, and they're responsible then for slaughtering that animal themselves. They may slaughter the animal on your farm. As long as you allow them the space to do that, the farmer is not allowed to assist with that butchering, but we do find with some ethnic groups, particularly where there may be some ways where they would like to control the slaughter of the animal, this absolutely is allowed. So live animals, the live animal may be again slaughtered on the farm. The farmer has now sold the animal to a customer. The customer needs to be responsible for the butchering of the animal. The customer may not sell the meat, so they need to be the end user of that product, and no license is required. So just the money exchanging hands for the animal itself. You may sell processed meat. So we take animal muscle tissue off the hoof, and perhaps it's made into steaks, chops, ground beef, could be brought, something we all look forward to this time of year. So that meat may be sold from your farm, from the farm gate. That's fine. When that happens, however, the farmer needs to then contract with a meat processing establishment to actually take that those live animals and create the processed meat products. So these are the steaks, the roast, or the ground product that we might see in the grocery store. So we talk about this as meat being processed under inspection. Sometimes you might hear of it as under the mark of inspection. So all meat that is processed where it's going to be sold other than a very few exemptions, like we talked about the poultry that's slaughtered on the farm, meat is processed under a mark of inspection. That mark of inspection may be from a USDA facility, for the United States Department of Agriculture, or Wisconsin has a very strong state meat inspection program. So you're going to have meat. So you're a farmer, you have beef animals, you work with a local meat locker to process the animals, you take them in for slaughter, the meat comes back to you, and you may, it's been harvested and slaughtered under the mark of inspection, and then at your farm, or perhaps at the farmer's market, or maybe in a local grocery store, then you have meat that you can offer for sale. The meat has been inspected during either fabrication, which is breakdown of the carcass, or further processing, perhaps making of a ground product. There's just a couple things that packaged meat needs to have. It needs to be sold by weight. It needs to be properly labeled in terms of what it is, and the mark of inspection needs to be on the product. A farmer who sells meat from their farm gate would need a retail license if it's sold on the farm. Again, relatively easy to get that particular license. If you're going to move your farm gate or expand your farm gate, if you want to think about it that way, and you're going to sell at a farmer's market. Again, my family had access and still does to meat, and we have some favorite farm market vendors where we really look forward to getting meat from these individuals for our freezer. That would simply require a retail license, a mobile retail license if you're moving it from the farm gate and you're simply transporting it to a farmer's market. What's not sold is going to be then transported back, but all relatively easy to handle. Within our regulatory framework, the information about a retail license for meat or a mobile retail license for meat, you would start with the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection and our meat safety inspection program. for this state. And I just provide here the information or the phone number, which is 608-224-4694. So that's a great place to look for that information. All right, next slide. We've got a couple more and then some probably more prominent exemptions, but let's look at these two. Rabbits are another meat item where there can be home or farm slaughter and sale of rabbits. The meat tissue from rabbits needs to be handled to ensure that food safety, the safety of that product is maintained, and there's no license required for this. There may, if you're in a municipality, there may be some local restrictions governing how many rabbits you may keep, but there's no license required from the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection for home or farm slaughter and sale of rabbit. Again, another way to look at information is looking at the handout Direct Marketing of Meat and Poultry from the Department of Agriculture. That includes a little bit of information about rabbit and some other more exotic species. Bison is also briefly mentioned, and what have you. So that's another exemption that individuals have if they're wanting to get into the muscle market or meat market without having to go through a lot of hoops for some of the more advanced businesses may need to. And then there's also, as we look towards, this is just the start of summer, although I think it seems as if we went from winter to summer over the last week. But if we think of the end of summer, which is the fall, and many of us enjoy so much apples, fresh apples from Wisconsin growers, and apple cider, one of my favorite things for the fall. So apple cider can be sold from the farm or at a market. If you grow your own apples, you can certainly press that cider right at your orchard. You don't have to have a license for doing that. You do have to label the product, and in this particular case, when we talk about apple cider, we're talking about fresh cider. It's not pasteurized, and we need to let consumers know that there isn't a pasteurization step for that. And but that's okay. It's still a great product, and many of us look forward to it in a couple of months here down the road as we get into fall. Here I had to do a little bit more looking. I couldn't find the regulatory information that was easy to look for. So I found that the Cornucopia Institute, which is designed to really support growers and farmers, they have an excellent handout, Selling Apple Cider in Wisconsin. It's very easy to read, and I recommend that highly. So if you were looking at searching and your Google search selling apple cider in Wisconsin, if you just put the term cornucopia for Cornucopia Institute, you'll find it's nicely laid out what the requirements are so that you're under this license exemption. And then let's look at, Erin has just put that in the chat box too. If sometimes people like to see that in the chat, you can click on it, it'll bring it up on a web page. You can just hold that web page there, and then at the end of today, if you want to refer back to it, it will be available for you. Let's look at probably the most prominent one of two exemptions that we have. Thanks, Nick. We'll go to the next slide. And this is the one that we've had around the longest, from 2009, I believe it was, where Governor Doyle at the time signed a bill into law that allowed home-based pickling. And those of us who have been answering questions about this still do refer to this as the pickle bill. It's a law now, but we still call it that. It's kind of easy to refer to that way. So what did this bill do? This allowed some definite value added to products in Wisconsin. So this said if you have fruits, you don't have to grow these fruits or vegetables, but let's say into your home or out of your field, you have fruits or vegetables, as long as they're either naturally acidic. We think of most fruits as naturally acidic. Apples are a great example. Or it could be vegetables that we're either pickling to make something like a bread and butter pickle, or you might be fermenting cabbage to make sauerkraut. So we have home canned fruits or acidified vegetables. We can process these in our home and our family kitchen, the same place. Clear your family out after mealtime. Mealtime's done. Use the kitchen now for your business. So you process in the family kitchen. The products do need to be shelf stable. This is kind of how we think of canning. It may also be jams and jellies. I should say that too. Applesauce is another thing that people are manufacturing under the pickle bill. We can sell this product at throughout Wisconsin at any farmer's market and at community events within the state. So these might be fairs that are coming up. These might be, we're getting back into the summer swing of things, and this summer, hopefully, we will see some of these community events in Wisconsin. Sales of up to $5,000 per person per year. So an extended family with quite a number of children may be able to have quite a bit of sales per person per year. The ingredients do have to be correctly listed. This is really important for food safety, especially those who may have some either allergens or may have some preferences in terms of their diet. And there does need to be a point of sale label. It's kind of like a warning label. It simply lets people know that the product was made in a private home, not subject to state licensing and inspection. So that's the pickle bill. It's been the licensing exemption for value-added products that we've had around in Wisconsin for the longest. And we have one more that's a little more recent. This is allows home bakery businesses. So in 2018, I believe it was, a judge in Lafayette County did rule that individuals may, in their, again, home kitchens, just where you would prepare your family meals, you can take it's generally things like muffins, cupcakes, cookies, as long as you're baking items that are shelf stable, they don't require refrigeration. And you may sell directly to consumers in Wisconsin. So this doesn't require farmers markets like our pickle bill did. This could be from your home in Wisconsin. So direct sales to consumers. They can't be what are referred to as potentially hazardous. So we look at potentially hazardous things, which unfortunately are kind of yummy, as buttercream frostings, cream and custard pies, fillings may be potentially hazardous. But as long as it's non-potentially hazardous, lots of cakes, lots of cookies, muffins are in this category. The items have to be properly labeled. They cannot be candies or confections. So they have to be baked items. You know, there's some yummy confections, chocolate things maybe, but they aren't baked because if you put them in the oven, they're gonna melt. So that's our home bakery business. We haven't had that exemption for quite as long, and it didn't come to us as a law that the governor signed. So it's a little bit different, a little bit less information on this one. So let's look at the next, where we're thinking about, these might have prompted some ideas, but how do you kind of start in making some of these decisions? This is an investment of your time, if nothing else, and you have a brand that you're trying to protect. So what are some questions that you might think about, and some areas you might look if you're trying to figure out if that is this value added the right step for you? Just kind of FYI, most people who start in a business like this with food of some sort, food or meat. They will establish an LLC, which is a limited liability corporation that protects your personal finances from the finances of your business. So that is something to look into. You are also going to want to consider what are the right place for product pricing and marketing. Labeling is huge. Labeling is a way to sell your product. It also is a way to inform consumers what's in your product. So it does need to be correct. And then there's other information about starting a small business. I think we're going to hear a little bit at the end of today about the Something Special from Wisconsin program. So there's some systems in place. I'm going to point you to two websites here. One is the food systems team that is bringing, or program that is bringing you today's program. They have a website with a lot of great information. So that's foodsystems.extension.wisc.edu. And then I also want to point you in the direction of our farm management program. If you happen to have animals on your farm, or you're looking at farm gate type resources, the farm management program has, again, excellent resources. That website is farms.extension.wisc.edu. So just pointing you in the direction. There is information out there if you just are wanting to do a little bit of searching. Okay, I have just a couple more slides here, and that we'll go through relatively quickly. I don't want to leave you thinking that that you have to do this all on your own. I'm going to provide you with some materials that you can search out, and then I'm going to provide you with some phone numbers for follow-up questions. So there is an extension food safety site that I manage, fyi.extension.wisc.edu/safefood. I will tell you foodsystems.extension.wisc.edu on the previous slide is a little more comprehensive. Information, though, that may be helpful for you. Wisconsin has a local food marketing guide. It is slightly out of date, but is a wealth of information. And much of what I shared about eggs from your farm, some of the information on produce from your farm, all of these types of things, or at the farmer's market, does come from the Wisconsin Local Food Marketing Guide. That's a great resource to search out. Another resource is the Wisconsin Food Processing and Food Sales Requirements Guide. And I believe Angela Moragne, who's our next speaker today, is featured in that particular publication. Then there's information from the Department of Agriculture selling home canned food. You can find a quick multilingual resource if you search for that. And licensing exemption for home bakers. That also is information available from the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture. So another great resource. Okay, a couple more slides. All right, so there's a lot of things that we haven't covered today. So I wanted to just quickly highlight those. If you're going to be looking to process dairy, so you're taking milk and you're manufacturing pasteurized fluid milk, cheese, other ingredients like that, generally a license is required. Some of that makes sense. Our reputation of our state does depend on our dairy industry to certainly a great extent. Generally, a license is required, except for a few exceptions, if you're looking to process meat. A license is required also if you're processing fruits and vegetables. So you're peeling them, you're chopping them, you're drying them, doing something like that. The one exception is our pickle bill. Again, that's a great where you don't have to have a license. If you're looking to make a meal, if you're going to be preparing food that you want to sell at a farmer's market or at a local activity, generally you're going to need a license for these activities. You might need a license if you exceed a particular sales or on-farm limit. Often if you're selling to grocery stores, restaurants, or other establishments, unless it's something like produce. When you're selling out of state, Absolutely. And that is something that a license does allow you to do pretty much. Other than meat, you can sell out of state. And when you're not operating a legal home-based business, so you're operating out of another facility outside your home. Okay, so if you are thinking, oh, things aren't quite fitting together for you today, you aren't hearing what you had hoped, what are the 3 very, very basic questions as you look to expand as a food business and get started as a food business? I probably should have said get started first or expand. Questions to ask yourselves, what are you really passionate about making? There's some great things to think about there. Where are you going to make it? So we've talked about some exemptions for on your farm or out of your home. If it's not one of those places, what else are you thinking about? And then where are you going to sell your products? If you can think to yourself about these 3 questions and some of the resources we have for you that we will follow up with as a result of today, will kind of help guide you some of your thinking in this area. So as you're thinking about those, I'm going to give you 2 important phone numbers. The Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, or DATCAP, has a group of licensing specialists that are ready and able to answer your questions, 608-224-4923. Or I call myself the Extension Helpline. I've given myself that title. I probably don't need to, or maybe that was a little presumptuous of me, but I spend most of every day on the phone, and much of that time is answering questions from people who are just trying to figure out what's required and how to get started. So my phone number direct to my desk is 608-263-7383. Okay, and then just one summary slide and then a couple Q&A, and we'll turn it over to Angela. So just remember, as we manufacture food for sale, it needs to be manufactured under sanitary conditions. This is a clean kitchen, or whether it's in your home or in another facility. The prepared food needs to be safe and wholesome. And importantly, also, we don't want it to become unsafe during handling or transport. So if you're looking for a little bit more information, I'm just going to highlight the next in our series. We'll cover that at the end too. We'll cover manufacturing food under a license. So what is that process like if you want to find out more specifically? Okay, and I have one more slide here. We do want to turn it over to Angela. Here, there are a few questions that came in ahead of time, and I wanted to just kind of prime the pump for some questions that we'll definitely have time for at the end of today's program. So if you're operating out of a shared space, so this is not your home kitchen, where do you find a shared space and how do you go about that? So we'll actually have the next 2 programs in our series of Monday afternoons will help with that. The next, our next week program is on licensing of a commercial food business. So you'll learn more about some of the ins and outs of operating under a license. Our program on June 21st is specifically on operating in a shared facility, and you'll find someone, an expert in using a shared use facility, and then also a manager of a shared use facility will provide a lot of helpful tips. You're welcome to also call my number, 608-263-7383, to help with brainstorming on that where question. Where might you process your product? So there was a question that came in ahead of time about staying up to date. And so I just used that standard refrain. It can be hard to do. Regulations do change. I encourage you to reach out to your local extension educators. We're more than happy to help, and to remain engaged with the group today, our goal is to try to continue to sustain you as you start and grow your business. Selling prepared food at an on-farm location was a question that came up. That will be covered next week because we'll talk about licensing, and that would be something for a license. If you want to sell a meal at your farm, perhaps if you have farm tours or people are harvesting at your farm. Business planning for success. There is an extension food business development information, or Erin, who is helping to manage some of the information today, who's on our call. Erin is kind of in charge. She's waving. If you have her up on your, can see her with your camera, is a great resource for kind of plugging into that information. That's not something that I know a lot about. Food labeling requirements are laid out by Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection in a food labeling handout. Feel free to search that out. I also help with that a lot. And then we had a question about accepting Ebt benefits. You may have heard just recently, Secretary of Agriculture for the national level, Tom Vilsack, announced that there will be additional funds that individuals on some public assistance will have for purchasing fresh produce, specifically at venues like farmers markets. One contact that I knew of for gathering information and understanding how to set up your farm stand or your farmers market stand so that you can take these Ebt benefits from individuals is Sarah Smith, sarah.smith@wisc.edu. And I'm sure that those on the team today who are on the food systems team can help as well. Again, I'm willing to help at any time. I love my job because I get questions every day that are new and exciting and fun to answer. And I love helping people get started in the food business. I was also telling my colleagues before we got started today, I also love to eat, which is another great thing about living in Wisconsin in the summer. With that, I'm going to turn the program over. And Angela Moragne, who is has been through so much of this, is going to share. That Salsa lady, founder and COO, has a great story to share with all of us about how she made it to where she is. She got her start just like many of you are interested in doing. And so we're going to turn the microphone over to Angela at this point. And then after Angela's presentation, we'll both stay on the phone or the computer and be happy to answer your questions. So with that, Angela, we're anxious to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Barb. Really appreciate it. Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear and see me okay. I am Angela Moragne. I am mistaken as the that salsa lady, but I'm actually the chip chick, but it's okay. I stand in for her all the time. So I don't have slides because Barbara covered everything, or should I call her Barb? She covers so much. And it actually brought chills looking back at the steps that we had to go through. I'm like, oh my gosh. And until you're in the muck of it, or you're out of the muck of it, you don't realize it's, oh my, how far you've actually come. We started in 2011, and we had a lot of fortunes on our way. So she talked about the pickle bill. So what was it, 2010, you said, Barb? 2010, it came the following year. I left corporate America, not by choice, but definitely, it was a saving grace. And a lot of us are pushed into entrepreneurship as opposed to jumping into it. And before that, I actually had consulted on a development. I don't know if you guys are in Milwaukee or where Teutonia and Center is. There is a housing development there. And it was one of the first developments in the state that was structured to have an urban garden in the rear. So I was so impressed with it, patting myself on the back, of course, that I moved into the unit there, and it oversaw the urban garden. To my dismay, nobody was using it. They're not used to seeing food grow right outside their door, let alone it being free. And it was literally free. Just go out there and pick it and it was yours. So we saw it rotting on the vine. So when I separated from the corporation actually shut down, we looked out the window, and my daughter, she's that salsa lady for a reason, because she has made salsa for us since she was a teenager. She's now over 30. And I'm like, hey, I'm broke. That's free. Do you want to make some salsa? She said, sure. She was what were you, 20 at the time? She didn't know what she was getting into. But again, like I said, it's fortuitous because we lived in a multi-unit apartment dwelling, and downstairs was the heart of the hood, so to speak. It's a barbershop. And if you've seen the movie Barbershop or you've been in a barbershop, you have people going in and out. So that was our test market. And the fact the pickle bill was a lot easier than we thought it would be. We literally had vegetables, we had knives, she had the skill, and we had an audience right there. And we just started making salsa. What we didn't know until you just said it, Bob, is it was $5,000 per person. We had to do our best to keep it to $5,000. We didn't realize that we've got like 100 people in our family. We could have been Bill Gates. But we would never have moved ahead either. But and if you guys have any questions, just I don't have a problem with you guys raising your hand or something if it's something that just can't wait or you have to jump off to earlier than you like. But the pickle bill was great because we actually were able to sell right away, and then right up the road was a farmer's market, and it's a farmer's market that we always used. River West Farmers Market. It's right there, East Locust Street. It was always friendly. And we just started having conversations. And I think maybe 4 months into it, that was the first time we ever openly sold our salsa. And we did. We always were, avid, hand washers and cleaning up and things like that. So we always were diligent when it came to that. So that wasn't a concern for us because it was a natural instinct. So we made sure we did our homework with that. We also did a lot of collaboration. So we used that as a training, like I think we used the pickle bill for like 2 or 3 years. And in that time, we worked with nonprofits. We talked to local licensing people. We talked to other vendors. That was a godsend for us, other vendors. But what we realized also is the licensing people are not the boogeyman. I mean, I've heard some horror stories, and for us, it was really easy each step. When we turned and looked for an answer, it was there. Somebody knew something. So don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, like back in school, they say, hey, there's never a stupid question. There are, but nobody's gonna tell you it's stupid. I say, just rephrase it. Don't feel stupid asking anything, because in this day and age, especially with the internet, don't believe, Inspector Google, see something there and follow it up with, speaking to a vendor who's actually been in the game, who's actually just entered it, and they know licensing people. Another step that helped us was our order person. Our order people want you to start your business because it brings in tax dollars. So we made sure that we had a order person. You don't have to donate to their campaign. You pay taxes or you don't pay taxes. Everybody pays taxes. Just make a phone call. They have staff right there. The great thing about what we did is tomatoes are fruits. People don't tend to remember that, but they are. And like I say, it was 3 years in, and that's when we started realizing that we needed to shift. We shifted because we wanted to take our value add a step further, and we wanted to start getting in stores. And, you have these big visions about, yes, we want to get in the biggest, baddest stores around. And what we found is that is not necessarily where you want to go, or where you may want to go there. Let me rephrase. You may want to go there, but it's not really where you need to be. And so let me step back once. In that part with the pickle bill, it talks about using your labeling and your signage and things like that. Something else that you really want to do is use that starting point to do record keeping. And you want to start early. If you have ingredients, if you have a special way to do stuff, do it then when it's real small, it's real easy, and it's not very tedious, and you'll just start working into it. And you don't need to go and buy anything. Google has got really great programs that you can make your own. If you have, a lot of us have Excel and things like that we can now we can use at home because we got home offices. But you have those Word programs, so you can just design your own. Or guess what? You know what? Regular pad of paper, pad and pen, it works. I said we were really fortunate because my son happens to be an expert in entrepreneurship, and he ran, departments in the Navy. I mean, oh my God, he'll kill me. In the Marines. So he actually was our business advisor, and he still is off and on. So he taught us those things. So always look for the free stuff. Always ask somebody that you think knows something. Look for the smart person in the room or in your orbit, or the next one down. Somebody that you know that knows a little bit can always point you and say, well, I don't know this, but hey, so-and-so may know it. And again, don't be afraid. I'm trying to be good and look at my notes. That's something I rarely do. So yeah, I don't see any questions popping up, so I'm gonna keep going if that's okay. The next thing we did is when you're in your the pickle bill, also market yourself. There are things like social media, stuff like that. Don't pay for ads. Just talk to people and get your business cards. They're relatively inexpensive, or make your own. People just care about the information. They don't care how cute and fancy it is, as long as you have the information. But it wouldn't hurt for you to practice on your labels while you're using the pickle bill, because now that I know it's $5,000 per person, you can do a whole lot. So, and bringing that money in, and we always filed our taxes. So that's another good thing as well, because then you have that history, you have that routine that you're building. Look at it for means, motive, and opportunity. And these are things, the means is always, hey, I need to make money. I need to make it now, or I need to fill a gap. I need a side hustle. However you're going to do it, you want to make sure that it's accomplishing what you needed to do, and at some point what you wanted to do. Looking back in your experience, what was the challenging part of beginning your salsa business? Judy just asked me, what was the challenging part of our salsa business? Losing my job in the first place. I love that job, and when it shut down, it drove me nuts. But more than anything, I was scared. I'm not going to kid you. And I was a serial entrepreneur, but I always had this my corporate gig to rely on. Now it's like me against the world, and then but what I really, just the unknown, that was it. But once I saw that so many people were were excited, I should say, weren't anxious. And we were, I don't know if I mentioned this, or is in our, everybody have the website? You can play with that as I'm talking, if you want. It actually, what was I trying to say? We actually didn't realize until we got into it that we were the only Black-owned salsa company in the country. We had no idea until we started looking. But we got into it, like I said, because we just liked salsa. So the most difficult thing was letting ourselves know, yes, we can do this. And I say that I'm a lazy farmer because I like innovation. I like, shortcuts. People say the shortest distance between two lines, shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. I say it's not always the fastest route. So I'm looking for an end around. And that's why my mind is always working around. So not knowing that paycheck is coming in was the most aggravating thing. I hope that answered your question. But I don't want you to be deterred by that. We're 10 years in, and things, I won't say that they're easy, but they're not as scary as I once thought they were, because there are so many people out there, even if they're not in the food business, or even if, they're not trying to start a business, they know people. So never be afraid to ask those questions seriously. Another thing is collaborations I talked about. I'm in Milwaukee, so I'm not sure if you guys have UW, which is the Urban Economic Development, I think it's association. They were instrumental. We worked with BIDs, business improvement districts, because they want businesses to come in. And again, like I said, the aldermen. So just ask around and find out. That cap came around because for us, because another vendor said, hey, Angela, this is who you need to talk to. And what they were saying is that kept actually the licensing allowed you to work anywhere in Wisconsin, as opposed to buying a license for Milwaukee, for Whitefish Bay, for Racine. You bought one license for one price. So that I would say, if you're going to start licensing with the state of Wisconsin and have it done. And if you're, I believe it's, I think it's, if it's under 50,000, it's $95. So, and then you're done with it. But you also need to get your seller's permit, and ours is a mobile food permit. So we have a mobile food license. So we have 2 licenses that are permit that you renew every year. And don't, I should stop saying don't, start saying listen. Yes, it's easy. The only reason I want to say don't is because don't let it stop you. Don't let fear stop you. Don't let, failure stop you. Man, we've screwed up so much stuff. We had salsa with all types of stuff, and we're like, what the heck is this? No, let's start peeling back. And going back to those records, make sure that at the beginning, when you're doing that recipe or your formula, when you change it, put that down, but also put why you changed it. Our market research, you can do market research in your house. Our shelf life evaluation we did in our house with our customers. We compiled that. We didn't realize how long fresh salsa, our salsa, lasts. And we don't put preservatives. We don't put sugars. We don't put preservatives, sugars, and something else I'm forgetting. No, that's it. Salsa lady is right here. You want to come and say hi? She's here. She's coming over here. The dog has got Chase. She's trying to hold the dog. There she is. That's that salsa lady. I'm just the face. I'm Dave, like Wendy's. She's Wendy's. Yeah, she's a show horse. I'm the workhorse. But and being with your family is great if you get along with your family. So marketing we talked about. Also, there's something called a business model canvas. You can Google business model canvas, free stuff. And it's not people for the longest time, and they just got smart maybe 4 years ago after we got into the business, and business plans get outdated, and you have to go and do all this information. A business model canvas, you can take Post-it notes and just put it here and there and everywhere, electronic or hard copy. And it basically asks you who your market is, what are you selling, what problems are you solving, and things like that. What finances do you need? So I would look into that. Again, it's called Business Model Canvas, and it's in Google. Then we transitioned into the retail and wholesale side. And that's where the licensing came in. We got the licensing. And we found that, again, I'm overemphasizing record keeping, because we've come across people, just to say that some people may want to usurp your information. So you want to make sure you track that. It's very important that you track what you have. There are things called non-disclosures, non-competes. These are serious things that you need. They can be a paragraph, but if you're going to have a conversation with somebody about, proprietary information, it's not proprietary if you're just volunteering it. You may think it's nothing, but believe me, it's sort of like starting a business with your buddy, and it's like, hey, this is great now, but if you guys don't sit down right there when everybody's, happy and in love and having beers, and say, hey, this is the rules of the road. When and if it comes to that, oh my God, I want to just yank his throat out, you won't be able to look back at that paperwork and say, hey, this is what we agreed to, man. This is what's going on. So please make sure your documentation is great. What we found too is we didn't like leaving it to anybody else for our ingredients. We always leaned toward local is what we did. We took advantage of the vendors that were around us. We always supported them because we wanted people to support us. And then we said, you know what? Victory Garden was out there. We were, hanging out with them, having a good time. And we realized, hey, we can buy some farm beds and garden beds So we ended up donating garden beds to people. We bought like about 7 or 8, and we had, won an award on a competition we were in. I think it was Marquette. We won Impact Next. And we use some of that money to get people to garden. We donate garden beds, and all we ask them to do is grow a tomato plant for us. And we, visit them. We supply the tomatoes and things like that. So those connections too. And then we realized, hey, we could do this. So we started our farm. It's a micro farm called That Hood Ranch, because it's a ranch in the hood. We came across the property because, like our salsa, we didn't realize it was the first, we were the only ones. This property is sitting on just under a half an acre, and we're in the middle of the hood. We're just down from what used to be Capitol Court. What is it, Midtown now? So we're on 47th off of Capitol. And it sits on 3 lots. The house was, a fixer-upper, but the land was wonderful. And we collaborated with a team of guys that we met at the farmer's market. They were a vendor, and they helped structure our farm out here. And that was 7 years ago. So now we do things. We grow our vegetables. We grow our tomatoes. Like, I've got probably 7 different varieties of tomatoes out there. One of my favorite is San Marzano. San Marzanos are Italian tomatoes, and they're very difficult to grow here. At least I haven't. They're difficult for me to grow. If you got a secret, I'm asking, hey, share, okay? But we got tomatoes out there. We got sweet peppers and all types of stuff. Now the onions, I'm not great out, so I always buy those from a farmer. If you have any other questions or I'm boring you, just let me know. I'm getting past it. This is what happens when I keep notes. We also collaborated with a UW Extension. It's called Learn, Earn, Grow. Bonnie Halverson, shout out to Bonnie. We actually they bring on kids and Cream City Conservation Corps. I realized early on that I can't do all this by myself, so I collaborated with people who are helping kids to, get jobs and learn skills and things like that. But more than anything, it was important for us to let kids know that agriculture is very cool. So these collaborations, just sticking for yourself, I wouldn't advise that at all. I mean, we've been on not just Impact Next, but Project Pitch It, and we've been told by the highest of the highest from the Bucks organization and millionaires, hey, look out for yourself, look out for yourself. That never felt good for us. It never, and we tried to take their advice and it just didn't feel good. We're social entrepreneurs, so what do people that are social do? They socialize. So we talk to other people and we see how we connect and we collaborate and we align ourselves with those people who are aligned with our mission. Why align yourself with somebody that doesn't understand what you're doing and is not going to be there to support you? There's only, somebody just takes as opposed to gives. I mean, it's up to you how you're going to do it, but that's, what works for us. The farm, I'm almost 90%, done with that. We use probably 97% rainwater. This drought had my barrels just down to the last bit, so I had to break out the water hose. It killed me when I did that. So we are very, precise when it comes to our salsa. So we don't use pesticides or anything like that. I kill weeds by using vinegar and salt and a little bit of dish soap. So I really, don't want anything going in your bellies that, I wouldn't want in my grandbaby's bellies. So we did use a shared kitchen back when they were $500 an hour, exaggeration, but it felt like it when you're making, $5,000 a year, because you weren't smart enough to know there was per person. Yes, I'm going to beat that like a dead horse. But yeah, so we use shared kitchens, but now there's far more shared kitchens. And it's great that UW Extension is going to have more information on that. We looked at low cost. Don't be afraid to barter. Just know that bartering is taxable, but it also saves you upfront cash. One of the things we do is great is, and somebody offered this to us as hey, can you give us X amount of sauce and I'll do something for you. I don't even remember. I think it maybe was some bookkeeping stuff, or I don't remember what it was. Oh no, I remember now. It was my grandsons. They loved the salsa and they wanted job experience. So they would work for salsa. And then, and then when my son would visit from the military, he would work for salsa as well. And I'm like, okay, something's going on. So that's what it was. They volunteered at times. So taking advantage of the family. We always have done fresh salsa because we didn't want to deal with the pH levels and the spoilage and the cooking and all the other stuff. And it's straight, straight from the garden, straight from the farm, to your face. And so look for the lowest barrier of entry was, what saved us. The easiest barrier for entry, it was very cost effective, extremely cost effective, because you didn't need licensing at the time. So we didn't, and all we literally had to do was walk out the door, get the tomatoes and what we need, buy a couple other things that we needed, get in our kitchen, like Barbara's talking about, make sure it was natural for us to make sure everything's cleaned up, and then pay for some the packaging. We always wanted the labeling, and the labeling is something you'll learn in licensing too, because you have to have a recall plan and things like that. But I'll let them get into that other universe. Don't let it intimidate you. Talk to your licensing person, and you won't always have the same one, but they'll look at the records. I don't think I have anything else. If you guys have some questions. Did I miss anything, you guys? Nick?
That was really great, Angela. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you lie, but thank you.
Well, I guess we'll never know, but I enjoyed it. It's great to hear your story. I've known you for a while, and I don't know the full story, so that's really, really fantastic. I did just catch a few questions. I think Barb might have touched on them a bit, and I think you guys could both speak to them. But I think even if Barb did touch on it, yeah, go ahead.
Just before we jump into questions, and I see there's some great ones, could we just turn it over to Lois Fetterman at DATCAP to just give a quick overview of the Something Special program, which might be of interest to some of the folks, and then we'll return to questions and we'll spend the rest of the time on that. I think she just wanted to spotlight a program real quick.
Of course, yeah, go ahead, Lois.
And Lois was having connection issues, so I believe she patched in by phone. Hopefully she's still with us.
Well, we actually were a part of that. So if you don't mind, I'll just touch on it a little bit until she jumps in. We Something Special from Wisconsin is really great. You actually get these cool little stickers also. They actually can connect you with, and I don't know if you've been shopping, you'll see it says Something Special from Wisconsin. And it actually will have different events and tips. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say, hey, collaborations of people like-minded. And it highlights, it lets people know right away, no questions asked. There's a little red sticker or a large red sticker or a poster. Hey, this is Something Special from Wisconsin. And yes, Wisconsin is saying, hey, it's something special. And then you get invited emails, con calls, and stuff like that. And events back when we had events, but it's really cool, and it's not expensive at all. It's like a few bucks, but it's really cool. Did she jump back on?
I got a message that she was having a hard time joining. So I just want to add, I believe that if you are doing direct sales and using the pickle bill or bakery exemptions, you are eligible, as well as commercial businesses. So have a look at the website. I posted it in the chat box. And if she is able to join us, maybe we can make a minute or two for her. But I think we're okay moving on at this point.
Great. Well, I could just read a few of the questions that came in the chat box. Like I said, I think Barb might have gotten to some of these, but worth going over them again. The first one was from Amy, and I'm sure this will be your favorite question, Angela. Amy asked, how long did it take for you to get over $5,000 in sales? What happened once you went over $5,000 in sales? And are there additional regulations after that point? I think both Angela, if you want to touch on that, and then Barb as well, to perhaps clarify a bit about that.
It was about 2.5 years. I mean, people, we honestly didn't know what was going on until people were knocking on our door at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, can I get some salsa? And we're like, what the heck are you talking about? And they were calling it crack. And I was like, Stevie, I think we need to sell more salsa. So, and the licensing back then it was very tricky. Now it's a lot less complicated. UWITA, which I spoke about earlier, they were instrumental in having these meetings and gatherings with licensing and DATCAP people to actually, and vendors saying, hey, this stuff is too difficult. We do not know how to navigate this. And it was a deterrent to have people transition from the pickle bill and make that jump. So a lot of people were what we call, in the shadows type of food entrepreneurs. And since they've transitioned to that more simple, it's still a little hiccupy, but there's a lot of paperwork, especially if you're not used to it. That's why I say get used to keeping your documentation and things like that when you're under the pickle bill. So you have a couple years, or for some people, it may be, 5 seconds. I don't know, but those documentations will come in handy when it comes to you transition and starting to fill out your information. You have to have a kitchen, a commercial kitchen. It has to be licensed commercial kitchen. And you, on top of that, you have to have your own license. So you can, and they'll talk more about that in the next series, I believe. But from our experience, we went to, it's so many shared kitchens out there now, and there are even more coming. But we went to restaurants that started in the evenings, and maybe, they didn't start till like 3 or 4 o'clock, so we could use it during the morning. And they were fine with it. We were referred to a restaurant because some market manager, a farmer's market manager, listened to us when we wanted to make that transition. They were like, hey, we know so-and-so, this new business that just opened up and they have a kitchen, da-da-da-da-da. And that's how we got it as well. The bid is how we got another kitchen that was on King Drive at the time through Growing Power. So it's a matter of making sure you're talking to people and not just hiding in a box and being afraid. So it took us a couple years, but then when we, and a lot, and the demand for it, which made us realize we couldn't just stay in this box. Well, we could have if we would have added some more family, but hey, under the bridge. I hope that answers your question.
Barb, if you want to weigh in, sorry, I'm trying to share a couple of final slides for everyone, but the challenge is I can't turn off my mute and on mute again while I do that. But
so that was great. I would say that,
that,
Angela has the experience. I usually have the chance to work with people right when they're getting started and help to direct them a little bit towards the resources that they need to be successful. Every once in a while, someone is expanding and I'll get to see them when they circle back. But I really don't know as much about making those steps as Angela did. So I thought her description was great. I think that the idea of record keeping, to those of us who have laboratories and love data, that sounds really like great information that I hadn't thought about sharing with others before. So that sounds really good. I do think, though, there's a question that, Angela, there was a question in the chat about just pricing of products. How do you know where to kind of set, how did you get information about how much to charge, that type of thing?
Hey, that actually is a great question, and I apologize. I did not think of that, but thank you for asking. Pricing, here's what we did. We made sure that, so say it costs $1 to make salsa. Formally, they say, hey, you should charge 100% or more. So basically you're charging another $1 to get your money. But what we found is we ended up overpricing when we first started, because we were using a lot of our ingredients were always, the highest quality of ingredients. But also we're like, hey, let's go big. And we were using jars and all this other stuff that we really didn't need. So what you want to do is you want to make sure and see, what fits for your budget. And you want to budget, maybe I would start at maybe 25%. Budget 25% for your cost of materials and supplies, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to build on. You have another 25% for those unexpected things. So maybe you want to do something different added in there. But you can, if you are okay and just starting out, you don't have to double the price. You can do 75 or 80% like that and just see, because you can always bring your prices down. But if you want to bump them back up, and you don't want to you also don't want people to look at you like, okay, what, you want me to pay $3 for this cookie and it's the size of a quarter? No. So you want to have a story so it supports whatever pricing. But again, a long story short is you want to at least 100%, but there should be some wiggle room. If you want to go 150% or 200%, you need to have a justification for that. But I'd stay right around 100% margin. So if it costs you $1, you still got another $1, and in multiples, 1,000, you're gonna make $1,000, over and above the $1,000 you spent. So you're selling something, it costs you $1 to make it. You're selling it for $2. So you're getting that $1 back. Plus you got another $1,000 if you're doing that much. But really, are you looking to make an impact and a difference, or are you just looking to grow? So it depends on where you want to go with it. Again, no matter how I answer a question, I hope I give you an answer you need. If not, just let me know.
Yeah, I think that was really helpful. I would just want to plug our survey. So folks, before you hop off, we've got about 10 more minutes, a few more questions. I know that were posted in the chat. Give Angela a chance to take a sip there. But yes, we have our survey in the chat. Please, you can go ahead. If you haven't already, you can open the chat box just by scrolling to the bottom of the screen, clicking chat, and you'll see it's the most recent post from Aaron. Maybe Aaron, if you'd post it one more time in case folks didn't see that. But with that being said, we have another question from Lori. And I think this is the one that Barb, you spoke to, but if you just want to kind of also say this in case people didn't see it in the chat. The question was, do home kitchens need to be inspected and approved?
Oh, that is a good question. So the short answer is no, and that is because you would not be licensed from your home kitchen. It's really, you can start your business if it's a bakery business, as long as it's non-potentially hazardous, or if it's in this canned pickles type category. And I did answer a direct question from someone. Salsa does fit within the pickle. It's considered an acidified food. Salsa, jams, jellies, fermented foods like sauerkraut, all those fit under the pickle bill. And then we have this additional exemption for bakery. But neither of those are licensed. So you don't have an inspector in your home. If you do have a separate facility in your home where you can have a business out of your home, and there are people that do that, then you would be inspected, but it's not where you prepare your family meals. It would be a separate facility in your home or on your property. That's a great question.
So everyone, feel free to chime in. You're welcome to turn off your microphone now if you have a question, and just ask that. While that takes place, I'm going to post a few of our final slides. So I'll just scroll through those, but let's keep the conversation going. Hope the slides don't interrupt that, but just want to make sure we put up some valuable information for everyone. But if anyone has a question, I'm going to mute myself. And I won't be able to unmute, so my colleagues feel free to kind of jump in and field these questions as well. Likewise, Angela and Barb.
Hey, I had a question as a clarification that was mentioned about poultry that's processed at home on the farm. So I think I've been receiving some conflicting information between DATCAP and some publications and then this presentation. if you are raising the poultry and processing them on the farm at home, are you able to sell those directly to consumers at a farmer's market?
No, so completely without a license, you would have to sell those at your farm gate. There, you are correct that there are instances where we look at the farmer's market as an extension of the farm gate. But when it comes to this particular thing, it is the physical farm location as far as I understand. So it would be actually on the farm. If you wanted to take those birds to a farmer's market, that would be at a minimum a mobile retail meat license. My understanding is those are relatively inexpensive, but that is something that you would have to, ideally, that would be the expectation that you would have. Great question.
But so you could still process that poultry on the farm at home with that mobile retail license, take them, because I think I was told that you need to take them to a licensed processing facility.
You may, and so this is where it's the one of the favorite sayings, unfortunately, is it's complicated and it depends. So I encourage you to call the meat inspection program for the state. You may need only a retail license. You may need to work with a licensed meat processor and contract with them to process the birds so that you can move them off farm. And I think that's what you've heard.
Yes, thank you.
Right, I'm sorry, I did look right here. It says less than 1,000 birds per year sold at a farmer's market. All birds must be slaughtered and processed at a licensed meat facility. Yep.
If anyone has any other questions, feel free to jump in. We'll be here for a few more minutes. I want to make sure that we're here to support you all. So feel free to jump in, either just turn your mute off and ask your question or post it in the chat. Okay, I think maybe we can take the silence, meaning that we might end early. It's a surprise and unusual. So we can wrap up, but here we go. Thank you, Josie. Josie just posted a question in the chat. Barb or Angela, do either of you want to field that one?
So I can. I know Josie, and I worked with her on our products. She has a great line of products that she's manufacturing. So for beverages, it depends on if it's a fruit juice based beverage. There's a particular food safety system for juice beverages. So there's HACCP, it's a food safety system. But in general, your license is going to be either a retail license from your local municipality, or you will have a license from the Department of Agriculture. Oh, a great question here too. I'm going to just jump in, Nick. I see this one. Would spring rolls be considered under the pickle bill? The answer would be no. Great question.
Okay, should we wrap up? One more chance to ask your questions. Otherwise, I think we will call it a day. I will make a few last plugs. Looks like Kimberly came through. So I'll just take a moment to once again remind everyone to fill out your survey. The link is in the chat. I'll go ahead and post that again in the chat, as well as to join us next week to continue the conversation Monday at 2. Barb or Angela, feel free to jump in and answer Kimberly's question.
Yeah, so Kimberly had a question, or if fruits or vegetables are frozen but otherwise not altered, is that considered processed? It is considered processing. I've had people ask me, well, what about if I just let things freeze in the field and then harvest them then and then take them in? But yes, it would be, technically it's considered processing. So freezing would be, you would be under a license. the huge thing, and Angela touched on this, one license, you can actually do a huge number of things as long as you stay. Meat is a little more complicated, but if you have one food license, you can generally, certainly if it's from Department of Agriculture, like Angela's license, she can make salsa, she can bake, she can distill, she can freeze, she can do package, she can peel, she can do all these things under one license from the Department of Agriculture. She can sell it out of state, she can potentially sell things to Canada. So one license, if you're thinking big, can allow you to do a lot of things. There's certain categories where your license is a little, it's not more complicated, but they're a little more at-risk activities. But generally, once you're into the license game, I guess if you think about it, you can do an awful lot under that one license. So a license for freezing may allow you to do fresh salsa like Angela's doing. It could allow you to do bakery. It could allow you to do a lot of things, and it potentially expand an on-farm business. Angela, do you have some thoughts for that with your license idea?
Just a follow-up. And again, I think I get where you're going with this. Is like you're trying to, stay, within the parameters of the pickle bill as much as you can. The thing is, if you're forced in, or because I don't know if you're doing like, I don't know if you want to elaborate, if you're doing like the popsicles or those ice cream things, or what do they call it? What is that stuff they do with the frozen fruit cups and things like that? So the thing is it might. Oh yes, are you in the city? Are you in Milwaukee? Because that. Okay. Yes. So look at churches, and I don't mean the chicken spot. I mean actual places of worship. They actually, and look at us schools. So they're always looking for a little extra money. So look at facilities like that. What else? And again, you can have the restaurants and some cafes. If you're in rural Wisconsin, that right there could, but definitely look at your places of worship, because a lot of times they don't use their kitchens all the time. They're there. And especially with, this past year, we had a lot of people, weren't able, to go worship. But usually, maybe Tuesday, Wednesdays, and a Sunday and a Saturday. So you maybe have, and then they don't use them all day either. And then nonprofits. I know that, Stevie, what is the place that I was getting on them? Urban Ecology. They had a full kitchen and they never used it, except when I was on them about, dude, how many people need this? So look at places and just ask, hey, do you guys have a kitchen? Especially, hey, I used to live in Atlanta, so we know the rural folks. We know everybody is really a family, the smaller the community. So just start asking questions and let them know, hey, I only need it for an hour. And then also make sure they're licensed as well, because if they have kitchens, they're licensed, unless they haven't been using them for a while. And yes, that is hard. And then ask if the price is out of reach. That's where your bartering comes in. Hey, if you want $15 an hour, I can only afford like $7 an hour. Can we, make a deal with that? Maybe I help you clean up or do some other stuff like that. Or maybe, you get some of my product that you can share with the congregation and things like that, or, have with the family. I hope that helped. I feel your pain about that commercial facility. I really do.
Great. Well, we are at time. We also have a link that I think Aaron's going to post. I was trying to find it, and I think hopefully Aaron will have a little bit better luck. Where we do, among our resources at the Community Food Systems, have a link of different shared use kitchens across the state. As Angela noted, there's a number of entities and communities such as churches that likely aren't listed on our link. And I believe all of those are linked on the, this and many other resources are included on the PowerPoint that Barb created. So that will be shared with everyone. So please do be sure to check those links once you have access to that PowerPoint. And we are at 3:30. I can open the floor to any of my other colleagues if there's anything else to add. It looks like Erin's posting the link below.
You guys, you can go to our website and it's just under the hit us up tab. And if you have any questions, just, fill out the little form there and just let me know that you were on this call. If it's something that you didn't want to share here, you think it's by some crazy means that I can answer a question for you, just go ahead and hit me up.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Angela and Barb, for sharing all your experience and wisdom. It's really great to hear your presentations back to back. They're really complimentary. And thanks to everyone who joined us for the presentations and conversation today. We hope you're able to join us next week for your guide to starting or expanding a commercial food business in Wisconsin. And please do take a second to complete the evaluation survey. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good one. Take care.
All right, you guys too. Stay cool.